The insomnia had been my companion for 3 months now. While Naomi slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling of our main bedroom, counting the familiar cracks in the plaster like old friends. The digital clock glowed 2:01 a.m. when her phone buzzed against the nightstand. I'm Daniel Farrow, 42 years old, facilities manager at the local college. I fix things for a living: broken pipes, faulty wiring, heating systems that quit in January. What I couldn't fix was whatever had gone wrong in my marriage over the past year. Naomi's late nights at the tech startup where she worked in HR had become routine. Her explanations about project deadlines and team meetings came easier each time. The phone buzzed again. Naomi didn't stir. She'd always been a heavy sleeper, but lately she slept like someone with a clear conscience. Or maybe like someone who'd made peace with their choices. I reached across her and picked up the phone. The caller ID showed Scott's name. Scott Mercer, my best friend since college, who worked in IT at the same company as Naomi. The same Scott who'd been my best man, who'd helped me move into this house, who knew where I kept my spare key. "Hello?" I answered, keeping my voice low. "Oh." Scott's voice carried surprise, then shifted to something casual, almost amused. "She's sleeping." But in the background, clear as a church bell, I heard Naomi's laughter. Not the polite chuckle she gave to my jokes anymore, but the genuine, delighted laugh I remembered from our early dating days. The laugh that used to be mine. The pieces clicked together with mechanical precision. The late nights, the new perfume, the way she'd started putting her phone face down during dinner, the distance in her eyes when she looked at me, like she was seeing through me to something more interesting on the other side. "Keep her warm," I said calmly, and hung up. Naomi stirred slightly, but didn't wake. I sat there for exactly 30 seconds, letting the reality settle into my bones. Then I got up, walked to my workshop in the basement, and pulled out my phone. Earl Gentry answered on the third ring. "This better be good, Daniel. It's past 2 a.m. I need all the locks changed on my house, tonight. Cash bonus for the emergency call, and another bonus for keeping quiet about it." Earl had been the town's locksmith for 30 years. He'd seen enough domestic drama to fill a library. "How many entrances?" "Front door, back door, side door from the garage." "And Earl? Make them good ones. The kind that can't be picked or bumped." "Give me an hour." Next, I scrolled through my contacts until I found Allison Mercer, Scott's wife, the woman who'd hosted countless dinner parties where the four of us had laughed and shared stories, the woman who probably had no idea her husband was currently keeping my wife warm. I typed carefully, "Check Scott's call log from tonight. Then check his location. We need to talk." I hit send and walked back upstairs. Naomi hadn't moved. She lay there peaceful and beautiful, her dark hair spread across the pillow, completely unaware that her world was about to change as dramatically as mine just had. Earl arrived at 3:15 a.m. with his van and toolkit. He worked quietly and efficiently while I made coffee and watched from the kitchen window. The man knew his craft. By 4:30, every lock on the house had been replaced. Earl handed me 3 sets of keys. "You want to tell me what this is about?" he asked, pocketing the $500 in cash I'd given him. "Just a precaution," I said. "Thanks for coming out." He nodded and left. I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee and waiting for sunrise. At 5:45, my phone buzzed. "Allison. We need to talk. Now." I texted back, "Come over, use the back door." Allison arrived 20 minutes later, still in her pajamas with a coat thrown over them. Her face was pale, and she carried her phone like evidence. She was a school teacher, practical and direct, with the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from managing 33rd graders every day. "Show me," I said. She held up her phone. Scott's location history showed him at the Riverside Motel on Route 11. His call log showed dozens of late-night calls to Naomi over the past 3 months. Text messages between them that made my coffee taste like ash. "I'm sorry, Daniel," Allison said quietly. "I had suspicions, but I didn't want to believe it. How long have you known? Really known? Since tonight when I got your text, but suspected? Maybe 6 weeks? Scott's been different. Distracted. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with me or the kids. We sat in my kitchen as the sun came up, two people whose lives had been quietly dismantled while they slept. But I wasn't angry. Anger was hot and unpredictable. What I felt was cold and precise, like the moment when you finally understand how a broken machine works and exactly what needs to be fixed. "What are you going to do?" Allison asked. "What needs to be done?" I said. "Are you with me?" She looked at her phone again, at the evidence of her husband's betrayal spelled out in timestamps and location data. "What did you have in mind?" At 6:30 a.m., I heard Naomi's car in the driveway. I'd moved her suitcases to the front porch an hour earlier, along with a manila envelope containing printouts of every text message and call log Allison had forwarded to me. Allison had gone home to pack her own bags and have a conversation with Scott. Naomi's key turned in the lock, but the door didn't open. I heard her try again, then again. Finally, she knocked. "Daniel? My key isn't working." I opened the door but left the chain latch engaged. "Your key wouldn't work. I changed the locks." Her face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, then a careful mask of innocence. "What are you talking about? Why would you change the locks?" "Check your suitcases. Everything you need is there, including some interesting reading material." She saw the manila envelope and her face went white. "Daniel, let me explain." "Explain what? How you and Scott have been using the Riverside Motel for the past 3 months? How you've been taking calls from him at 2 in the morning? How you laughed when he told me you were sleeping?" The mask slipped completely. "You answered my phone?" "You left it right there on the nightstand. Kind of careless for someone trying to keep secrets." Naomi's voice shifted to the tone she used in HR meetings, professional and controlled. "This is my house too, Daniel. You can't just lock me out." "Actually, I can. My name is the only one on the deed. You might want to call Scott. Maybe he can keep you warm somewhere else." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw her calculating, weighing her options, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much damage control she could manage. "Daniel, please, can we just talk about this like adults?" "We're done talking, Naomi. We've been done for months. I just didn't know it until last night." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the window, I watched her stand on the porch for several minutes, probably calling Scott. Then she loaded her suitcases into her car and drove away. My phone rang. "Scott." "Daniel, man, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "Come on, don't be like this. These things happen. We can work through it." "The only thing that's going to happen is you and Naomi figuring out where you're going to live, because it's not going to be here, and if Allison has any sense, it won't be there either." "Allison doesn't know anything." "Check your text messages, Scott. Then call me back and tell me what Allison doesn't know." I hung up. 5 minutes later, Allison called. "I showed him everything," she said. "He's packing a bag. Says he's going to stay at his brother's place until we can work things out." "Are you going to work things out?" "That depends on what you mean by work things out. If you mean, am I going to pretend this never happened and go back to playing happy family, then no. If you mean, am I going to make sure he understands exactly what he's lost and what it's going to cost him, then yes." I smiled for the first time in hours. "I think we're going to get along just fine." By noon, the whole situation had shifted from personal crisis to tactical operation. Allison came back over with her kids, 2 boys, 8 and 10, who were confused about why they were spending the day at Uncle Daniel's house while Daddy moved his stuff out. Mom said Dad has to live somewhere else for a while. The younger one, Tommy, told me while we sat on my back porch. Did he do something wrong? Sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people, I said carefully. When that happens, there are consequences. Like when I broke Mom's vase and had to use my allowance to buy a new one. Something like that, but bigger. Allison was inside, making phone calls. She'd taken a personal day from school and was systematically documenting everything she could find. Bank records, credit card statements, phone bills. She approached the situation like a research project, which I respected. My own approach was more direct. I'd spent the morning making copies of everything: the call logs, text messages, location data. I'd also made some calls of my own. The first was to Tom Brennan, who ran facilities at the tech company where Naomi and Scott worked. Tom and I had known each other for years through the local contractors association. "Hey Tom, it's Daniel Farrow. I need to ask you about your company's policy on workplace relationships." "Why? You thinking about applying for a job here?" "Not exactly. What happens if two employees are involved and one of them is married to someone else?" Tom was quiet for a moment. "That would depend on the circumstances. If it's affecting their work performance or creating a hostile environment, it could be grounds for disciplinary action." "Why do you ask?" "Because my wife Naomi and my friend Scott have been having an affair, and they both work for you. I thought you might want to know before it becomes common knowledge around town." "Jesus, Daniel, I'm sorry, are you sure?" "I've got phone records, text messages, and location data. Pretty sure." "Send me what you've got. I'll need to discuss it with HR and legal, but this kind of thing can create liability issues for the company." The second call was to Linda Morrison at the Briar Patch Bar. Linda was the unofficial information hub for our small town. She knew everyone's business, and more importantly, she shared it freely. "Linda, it's Daniel Farrow. I wanted to give you a heads up about something before you hear it from someone else." "What's going on, honey?" "Naomi and I are separating. She's been having an affair with Scott Mercer." Linda's intake of breath was audible. "Oh my goodness, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" "I'm managing. I just didn't want you to be surprised if you see them around town together, or if people start talking." "People are definitely going to talk. This is going to be big news around here." That was exactly what I was counting on. The third call was to Mira Santos, a private investigator who'd done some work for the college when we'd had issues with theft in the dormitories. Mira was ex-police, thorough and discreet when she needed to be. "Mira, it's Daniel Farrow from the college. I need to hire you for a personal matter." "What kind of personal matter?" "My wife is having an affair with my best friend. I've got evidence, but I want to make sure I know everything before I make my next moves." "What kind of next moves?" "Legal ones, financial ones, social ones. I want to make sure they understand the full scope of what they've done and what it's going to cost them." "How far do you want me to dig?" "All the way. Financial records, other relationships, anything that might be relevant. I want to know everything they thought I'd never find out." "That's going to take some time and cost some money. I've got both." By 2 o'clock, I had a plan in motion. Allison had found evidence of Scott's gambling problem, something I hadn't known about. Apparently, he'd been making regular trips to the casino in Bangor and had racked up significant credit card debt. That explained why he'd been so interested in Naomi, who made good money in her HR position. "Look at this," Allison said, showing me Scott's credit card statements. $15,000 in cash advances over the past 6 months, all from the casino. "Does Naomi know about this?" "I doubt it. Scott's been hiding it from me, so he's probably hiding it from her too. That's useful information. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Scott isn't just cheating on you. He's using Naomi to solve his financial problems. And when she finds out, she's not going to be happy about it." My phone buzzed. Text message from Naomi. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous." I showed it to Allison. "What do you think?" "I think she's starting to realize that this isn't going to blow over quietly." I texted back. "Nothing to talk about. You made your choice." She responded immediately. "It's not what you think. Let me explain." "It's exactly what I think. You and Scott can explain things to each other." Daniel, please, don't do this. I turned off my phone. At 3 o'clock, Tom Brennan called me back. Daniel, I've reviewed the information you sent. We're going to have to conduct an investigation. Both Naomi and Scott will be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. What does that mean for them? It means they won't be coming to work until we determine whether company policy has been violated and whether their relationship has created any legal liability for us. How long does that usually take? 2 weeks minimum. Could be longer if we find evidence of other policy violations. Other violations? Well, we've discovered that Scott has been using company computers for personal business. Looks like online gambling sites. That's grounds for immediate termination. I felt a grim satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. At 4 o'clock, Scott called me from his brother's house. Daniel, this has gone far enough. You're destroying people's lives over a mistake. I'm not destroying anything, Scott. You and Naomi did that all by yourselves. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Come on, man. We've been friends for 20 years. Friends don't sleep with each other's wives, Scott. Friends don't lie and sneak around and make fools of the people who trust them. It just happened. We didn't plan it. For 3 months? You didn't plan it for 3 months? How many times did you look me in the eye and lie to me? How many dinners did we have where you sat at my table and pretended to be my friend while you were sleeping with my wife? Scott was quiet for a moment. What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I screwed up. But this doesn't have to ruin everyone's lives. What I want is for you to understand that actions have consequences. You want to be with Naomi? Fine. But you're going to do it without jobs, without friends, and without the comfortable life you had before you decided to betray the people who cared about you. You can't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. What happens after that is up to other people. I hung up and immediately called Mira. What have you found so far? Interesting stuff. Your friend Scott has been in contact with several other women through dating apps, even while he's been seeing your wife. And your wife has been researching divorce lawyers. How long has she been researching divorce lawyers? About 6 weeks. She's been particularly interested in alimony calculations and asset division. So Naomi had been planning her exit strategy while still living in my house and sleeping in my bed. The betrayal went deeper than just the affair. She'd been calculating how to leave me while maximizing her financial benefit. Keep digging, I told Mira. I want to know everything. At 6 o'clock, Allison's boys were getting restless, so I suggested we all go out for pizza. It felt strange, this new configuration of our social group. 2 adults and 2 kids instead of the foursome we'd been for so many years. Are you and Mom going to get divorced? The older boy, Jake, asked me while we waited for our food. That's not up to me, I said. That's between your mom and dad. But you and Aunt Naomi are getting divorced, right? I looked at Allison, who nodded slightly. Yes, probably. So the 4 of us won't have dinner together anymore? No, we won't. That sucks. Yeah, I agreed. It does suck. But sometimes adults make choices that change things for everyone around them. Dad made a bad choice. Dad made several bad choices. Jake thought about this for a moment. Is he going to get in trouble? He's already in trouble. Good, Jake said firmly. He made Mom cry. After dinner, I drove them home. Allison's house felt different now, smaller somehow, like the absence of Scott's presence had changed the dimensions of the rooms. The boys went upstairs to do homework, and Allison and I sat in her kitchen. What happens next? She asked. Tomorrow I start phase 2. Which is? Making sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of people Scott and Naomi really are. How are you going to do that? I smiled. Small towns run on gossip, Allison, and I'm about to give this town the best gossip it's had in years. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes Maine beautiful and unforgiving at the same time. I'd slept better than I had in months, which probably said something about my state of mind that I didn't want to examine too closely. My phone had 17 missed calls from Naomi and 12 from Scott. I deleted them all without listening. At 8 a.m., I drove to the college for what would probably be my last normal day of work for a while. My supervisor, Janet Wells, called me into her office before I'd even had my first cup of coffee. "Daniel, I heard about what's happening with you and Naomi. I'm sorry." News traveled fast in a small town, especially when it involved people everyone knew. "Thanks, Janet. I appreciate that. Take whatever time you need. We can cover your responsibilities for a few days if you need to deal with legal stuff or whatever. Actually, I think staying busy is going to be better for me right now, but I might need to leave early today for a meeting with a lawyer. Of course. And Daniel? For what it's worth, I always thought Naomi was too good to be true. People who seem that perfect usually are hiding something." I spent the morning fixing a heating unit in the library and replacing burned-out fluorescent bulbs in the science building. Normal mechanical problems with clear solutions. It was therapeutic. At lunch, I drove to the Briar Patch Bar. Linda Morrison was behind the bar, as always, and the usual crowd of retirees and shift workers occupied their regular stools. "Daniel," Linda called out when I walked in. "How are you holding up, honey?" "I'm doing okay, Linda, thanks for asking." "I just can't believe it. Naomi and Scott. Of all people. I mean, I always thought Scott was a little too charming for his own good, but I never would have expected this." The other patrons had gone quiet, listening. This was exactly what I'd hoped for. "Yeah, it was a shock to me too," I said, settling onto a bar stool. "I guess you never really know someone until they show you who they are." "How did you find out?" asked Big Tom, a retired construction worker who'd been coming to the Briar Patch for 30 years. Scott answered Naomi's phone at 2 a.m, said she was sleeping, but I could hear her laughing in the background. The collective intake of breath around the bar was audible. "What did you do?" Linda asked. "Told him to keep her warm, hung up, and changed all the locks on my house." "Good for you," said Margaret, a woman in her 70s who'd been divorced twice. "Men like that think they can have their cake and eat it too. About time one of them faced consequences." "What about Allison?" Big Tom asked. "Does she know?" "She knows. She's handling it about as well as you'd expect." "Those poor kids," Linda said, shaking her head. "This is going to be hard on them." "It is," I agreed. "But kids are resilient, and they're better off knowing the truth than living in a house full of lies." I ordered a sandwich and ate it slowly, listening to the conversation flow around me. By the time I left, I was confident that the story would be all over town by evening. In a community of 8,000 people, news like this spread faster than a grass fire. My next stop was the law office of Patricia Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. I'd made an appointment that morning, and she'd agreed to see me on short notice. "Mr. Farrow," she said, gesturing to a chair in her office, "I understand you're interested in filing for divorce." "That's right. My wife has been having an affair with my best friend for at least 3 months, probably longer." "Do you have evidence?" I handed her the folder I'd prepared. Phone records, text messages, location data, photographs of them together that Mira had taken outside the motel. Patricia reviewed everything carefully. "This is very thorough," she said finally. "In Maine, we have no-fault divorce, which means you don't need to prove adultery to end the marriage. But having this kind of evidence can be helpful in negotiations around property division and alimony." "What can I expect?" "Well, you said your name is the only one on the house deed?" "That's right. I bought it before we got married and we never added her name to it." "That helps. What about other assets?" "We have joint checking and savings accounts, but most of the money in them came from my salary. She's only been working full-time for 2 years. Before that, she was in school part-time and working retail." "Any children?" "No." "That simplifies things. Based on what you've told me, I think we can structure this in a way that's very favorable to you, especially if she's been planning to leave anyway." What do you mean? You mentioned that your investigator found evidence she's been researching divorce lawyers. If she's been planning her exit, she might be more willing to accept a quick settlement rather than drag things out in court. How quick? If she agrees to reasonable terms, we could have this finalized in 60 days. I liked Patricia immediately. She was direct, practical, and clearly knew her business. What do you need from me? Sign these papers, pay the retainer, and let me handle the rest. I'll have divorce papers drawn up and served to her by Friday. What about her affair? Can we use that? We can mention it in the filing, but like I said, Maine is a no-fault state. The affair itself won't affect the legal outcome much. However, if she's been using marital assets to support the relationship, hotel rooms, gifts, things like that, we can potentially recover those expenses. What if she contests the divorce? Then it takes longer and costs more money. But based on what you've told me, I don't think she will. She's probably expecting you to file, and she's probably hoping to get it over with quickly so she can move on with her life. I signed the papers and wrote a check for the retainer. Walking out of Patricia's office, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not happy exactly, but purposeful. Like I was finally taking action instead of just reacting to other people's choices. My phone rang as I was getting into my truck. Allison. Daniel, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Scott came by the house this morning after I left for work. He took some things that weren't his. Like what? Money from my emergency fund, some of my jewelry, and he went through my desk and took documents. What kind of documents? Bank statements, insurance papers, stuff like that. I think he's trying to figure out what I have so he can claim half of it in the divorce. Where are you now? At school, but I'm going to leave early. Can you meet me at the house? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Scott's theft was a mistake, a big one. It showed he was getting desperate, and desperate people make poor decisions. It also gave us leverage. When I got to Allison's house, she was standing in her bedroom looking at an open jewelry box. He took my grandmother's wedding ring, she said quietly. The one thing I specifically told him had sentimental value and was never to be sold or given away. How much cash did he take? About $800. It was supposed to be for emergencies. I'd say this qualifies as an emergency. What do I do? Call the police? Not yet. First, let's see if we can handle this privately. If Scott is smart, he'll return everything and apologize. If he's not smart, then we involve the police. I called Scott's number. He answered on the first ring. Daniel, thank God. We need to talk. You're right, we do. You need to return everything you stole from Allison's house this morning. I didn't steal anything. I took what was rightfully mine. Scott, you took cash from her emergency fund and jewelry that belonged to her grandmother. That's theft, and we both know it. I need that money, Daniel. I'm in a bad situation here. What kind of bad situation? I owe some people money, and they're not the kind of people you want to owe money to. Gambling debts, probably to loan sharks or bookies who didn't accept late payments gracefully. How much do you owe? $25,000. I whistled low. That's a lot of money, Scott. I know. I've been trying to figure out how to pay it back, but with the suspension from work and everything. So you decided to steal from your wife? I borrowed from my wife. I was going to pay it back. With what money? You just told me you're suspended from work and owe 25 grand to dangerous people. Scott was quiet for a moment. I thought maybe you could help me out, for old times' sake. The audacity was breathtaking. He'd been sleeping with my wife for months, and now he wanted me to loan him money to pay off his gambling debts. Scott, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You want me to give you money to help solve the financial problems you created while you were having an affair with my wife? When you put it like that, it sounds bad. It sounds bad because it is bad. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return every single thing you took from Allison's house. The cash, the jewelry, the documents, everything. You're going to do it today before 5 o'clock. If you don't, Allison is going to call the police and file theft charges against you. Daniel, please. I'm desperate here. You should have thought about that before you decided to betray everyone who cared about you. 5 o'clock, Scott. Everything returned or Allison calls the cops. I hung up and looked at Allison. He'll return everything. How do you know? Because he's scared. He owes money to dangerous people, he's lost his job, and he's about to lose his wife and kids. The last thing he needs is theft charges on top of everything else. What if he doesn't return it? Then we call the police and his problems get a lot worse. At 4:30, Scott's car pulled into Allison's driveway. He looked haggard and desperate, like a man who hadn't slept in days. He handed Allison a grocery bag containing the cash and jewelry and a manila envelope with the documents. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm just trying to figure out how to fix this mess. You can't fix it, Scott, Allison said firmly. You can only stop making it worse. What about us? What about the kids? What about them? You think they're better off with a father who steals from their mother and lies to everyone around him? I made mistakes, but I'm still their father. Then act like it. Get help for your gambling problem. Find a job. Stop making everyone else pay for your bad choices. Scott looked at me. Daniel, I know you hate me right now, but we used to be friends. Doesn't that count for something? It counted for something when you decided to sleep with my wife, I said. It counted for something when you lied to my face for months. It counted for something when you answered her phone and laughed about it. But you didn't care about our friendship then, so don't expect me to care about it now. Scott nodded slowly and walked back to his car. As he drove away, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because justice was being served. Sadness because a 20-year friendship was ending in betrayal and recrimination. Do you think he'll cause more trouble? Allison asked. Probably, but he's running out of options, and desperate people make mistakes. Every mistake he makes gives us more leverage. What's the next step? Tomorrow, the whole town is going to know exactly what Scott and Naomi have done. By the weekend, they're going to understand what it feels like to be social outcasts. How? I smiled grimly. Small-town gossip is like a wildfire, Allison. All you have to do is provide the spark. Thursday morning brought the first real consequences of my campaign. I was replacing a broken window in the student center when my phone rang. Tom Brennan from the tech company. Daniel, I thought you should know. We completed our preliminary investigation into Scott and Naomi's situation. And? Scott's been terminated. The gambling on company computers was a clear violation of our acceptable use policy. Plus, we found evidence he was using company resources for personal business. What about Naomi? She's been suspended pending further investigation. Her situation is more complicated because she's in HR, and there are questions about whether she violated professional ethics by having a relationship with someone in a different department without disclosing it. What does that mean for her job? Probably termination, but we have to follow proper procedures. She'll likely be out by the end of next week. So Scott was unemployed, and Naomi would be soon. In a small town with limited job opportunities, that was going to create immediate financial pressure. My second call came from Mira, who had more information about Scott's gambling debts. It's worse than he told you, she said. I found records of loans from 3 different sources. The $25,000 he mentioned is just what he owes to one bookie. Total debt is closer to $40,000. Jesus. How did he get in that deep? Started small about a year ago, then kept doubling down trying to win back his losses. Classic gambling addiction pattern. He's been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul for months. What happens when he can't pay? Depends on who he owes money to. Some of these guys are just businessmen who will settle for payment plans. Others are less reasonable. Any idea which category Scott's creditors fall into? Mixed bag. But Daniel, there's something else you should know. Naomi doesn't know about the gambling debts. Scott's been hiding them from her just like he was hiding them from Allison. That was interesting. Naomi thought she was getting involved with someone who had his life together, not someone who was drowning in debt to potentially dangerous people. How do you know she doesn't know? I've been monitoring their communications. She's been texting him about finding an apartment together, splitting expenses, that kind of thing. Her messages suggest she thinks they're going to set up house and live happily ever after. She's in for a surprise. A big one, especially when his creditors start looking for him. I spent the rest of the morning thinking about how to use this information. Naomi had betrayed me, but she'd also been deceived by Scott. There was a certain poetic justice in letting her discover the truth about her lover, the same way I'd discovered the truth about my wife. At lunch, I drove to the grocery store, knowing I'd run into people I knew. Small-town grocery stores are social hubs, and I wanted to be seen handling the situation with dignity. I was right. In the produce section, I encountered Martha Stevens, who worked at the bank, and her sister Carol, who ran the local flower shop. "Daniel," Martha said, approaching cautiously. "I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry." "Thank you, Martha. I appreciate that. How are you holding up?" "I'm doing okay. It's been a difficult few days, but I'm managing." "I just can't believe it," Carol said. "Naomi always seemed so devoted to you." "People aren't always what they seem," I said simply. "I guess I learned that the hard way." "What are you going to do now?" "Move forward, file for divorce, start over." "Good for you," Martha said firmly. "You deserve better than that." We all deserve honesty from the people we love. Unfortunately, not everyone is capable of providing it. The conversation was brief, but served its purpose. By evening, my response to the situation would be common knowledge. I was handling it with class and dignity, which would generate sympathy and support. Naomi and Scott, by contrast, were looking more selfish and destructive by the day. My phone buzzed as I was loading groceries into my truck. Text from Naomi. "Can we please talk? This has gone too far." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "You're right. It went too far about 3 months ago when you started sleeping with Scott." She responded immediately, "I know you're hurt, but destroying our lives isn't going to fix anything." "I'm not destroying your life, Naomi. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows what you did." "People are talking about us all over town. It's humiliating." "Good. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair." "Daniel, please. I made a mistake, but we can work through this." I stared at her message for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe she was genuinely sorry, that we could somehow find a way back to what we'd had before. But I knew better. She wasn't sorry about the affair. She was sorry about getting caught. "No, we can't," I typed back. "You'll be served with divorce papers tomorrow. After that, all communication goes through lawyers." I turned off my phone and drove home. That evening, Allison came over with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. We sat in my kitchen, eating lo mein and spring rolls, talking about practical things like lawyer fees and custody arrangements. "Scott's been calling me all day," she said, "wanting to come home, promising to change, the usual stuff." "What did you tell him?" "That he had his chance to be honest with me, and he chose to lie instead. That I can't trust him anymore, and without trust, there's no marriage." "How are the kids handling it?" "Better than I expected, actually. They're angry with their father, but they're not taking it out on me or each other. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for. They knew something was wrong long before I did." "Are you going to let Scott see them?" "Eventually, yes. But not until he gets help for his gambling problem and proves he can be responsible. I'm not having my children around someone who steals money and lies to cover up his addictions." We were finishing dinner when my doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Naomi standing on my porch, holding what looked like a letter. "Should I answer it?" I asked Allison. "Up to you, but if you do, I'm staying right here." I opened the door but left the chain latch engaged, just as I had the morning I'd locked her out. Daniel, I wrote you a letter, Naomi said. Will you please read it? What does it say? It explains everything. Why I did what I did, how sorry I am, how we can fix this. We can't fix this, Naomi. Please just read it. If you read it and still want the divorce, I won't fight it. But please, give me a chance to explain. I looked at her through the gap in the door. She looked exhausted and desperate, like someone who was finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd lost. Leave it on the porch, I said. I'll read it later. Will you call me after you read it? No. If I have anything to say to you, I'll say it through my lawyer. She set the letter down and walked back to her car. I watched her drive away, then picked up the envelope. My name was written on it in her careful handwriting. Are you going to read it? Allison asked. Eventually, but not tonight. Why not? Because I already know what it says. That she's sorry, that it didn't mean anything, that Scott manipulated her, that she loves me and wants to work things out. The same things every cheater says when they get caught. What if she means it? Then she should have thought about that before she betrayed me. Actions have consequences, Allison. You can't just apologize your way out of months of lies and deception. We spent the rest of the evening watching a movie and not talking about our respective spouses. It felt normal and comfortable, like we were building a new kind of friendship out of the wreckage of our old lives. Around 10 o'clock, Allison gathered her things to leave. What happens tomorrow? She asked. Tomorrow, Naomi gets served with divorce papers. Scott probably gets a visit from one of his creditors. And we start the next phase of our new lives. Are you nervous? No, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm ready. After Allison left, I sat in my kitchen and opened Naomi's letter. It was 3 pages long, handwritten, and exactly what I'd expected. She was sorry. It had been a mistake. Scott had pursued her and worn down her resistance. She loved me and wanted to save our marriage. But buried in the middle of the letter was something interesting. Scott told me he was getting divorced anyway, that his marriage to Allison had been over for years. He said you and I were drifting apart too, and that maybe we could find happiness together. I know now that he was lying about everything. So Scott had manipulated both women, telling each of them what they wanted to hear. He'd told Naomi that his marriage was already over, and he'd probably told Allison that his affair was just a meaningless fling. Classic behavior for someone who wanted to have his cake and eat it too. I folded the letter and put it in the folder with all the other evidence. It might be useful later, either for the divorce proceedings or for helping Naomi understand exactly how she'd been used. My phone rang. Scott, calling from his brother's house. Daniel, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. Make it fast. Naomi doesn't know about my debts. When she finds out, she's going to be devastated. She thinks we're going to start a new life together. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want her to get hurt any more than she already has. You should have thought about that before you got involved with her. I know. I screwed up everything and now everyone I care about is going to pay for it. That's usually how consequences work, Scott. Daniel, I'm asking you as someone who used to be my friend. When Naomi finds out about the gambling and the debts, she's going to need someone to talk to. Someone who understands what it's like to be lied to and betrayed. What are you asking me to do? Don't let her go through this alone. She made a terrible mistake, but she doesn't deserve to be destroyed by it. Why do you care what happens to her? Because despite everything, I do love her, and I know you do too. I hung up without responding. Scott was right about one thing. Naomi was going to be devastated when she learned the truth about him. But he was wrong about something else. I didn't love her anymore. Love requires trust, and trust, once broken, can't be repaired with apologies and promises. I went to bed that night feeling calm and resolved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but I was ready for them. The fire I'd started was spreading exactly as I'd planned, and soon everyone would understand the true cost of betrayal. Friday arrived with the kind of gray, drizzling rain that makes October in Maine feel like the end of the world. I was drinking my second cup of coffee when the doorbell rang at 7:30 a.m. Through the window, I could see a process server standing on my porch with official-looking documents. But he wasn't there for me. As I watched, Naomi's car pulled into the driveway. She'd come back to try one more time to get into the house, probably hoping I'd read her letter and changed my mind. Instead, she was about to be served with divorce papers. I opened the door as the process server approached her car. "Naomi Farrow?" he called out. "Yes?" She looked confused, then alarmed as he handed her the papers. "You're being served with a petition for divorce. Have a good day, ma'am." Naomi stood in the rain, reading the documents, her face going pale. Then she looked up at me, standing in the doorway of what used to be our house. "Daniel, please. We can work this out." "No, we can't. You made your choice, Naomi. Now you get to live with it." "I read your letter," I continued. "The part where you said Scott told you his marriage was over and that ours was too. Did it ever occur to you to ask me if our marriage was over before you decided to end it yourself?" She stood there in the rain, holding the divorce papers, looking lost and broken. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You have 30 days to respond," I said. "My lawyer's contact information is in the papers." I closed the door and went back to my coffee. An hour later, my phone rang. Patricia Hendricks, my lawyer. "The papers have been served. How do you want to proceed?" "Full speed ahead. What's the timeline?" "If she doesn't contest it, we can have this finalized in 60 days. If she fights it, it could take 6 months or more." "What are the chances she'll fight it?" "Based on what you've told me about her situation, I'd say low. She's about to lose her job, she's involved with a man who's unemployed and in debt, and she doesn't have many assets to fight over. Fighting a divorce is expensive, and she's not going to have much money." "Good. What do I need to do?" "Stay available for questions and keep documenting everything. If she or Scott try to contact you or harass you in any way, let me know immediately." After I hung up, I called Mira to check on her progress with the investigation. "I've got everything you asked for," she said. "Scott's complete financial picture, his gambling history, his other relationships, everything. Do you want to meet this afternoon to go over it?" "Yes." "And Mira? I want you to do something else. I want you to make sure Naomi finds out about Scott's debts and his other women. But I want it to look like she discovered it herself. How do you want me to handle that?" "Leave some evidence where she'll find it. Maybe at the motel where they've been meeting or in Scott's car. Make it look accidental." "That's going to cost extra." "I don't care what it costs." I spent the morning at work, trying to focus on normal tasks, while my phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts from people who'd heard about the divorce papers. News traveled fast in a small town. At lunch, I met Mira at a coffee shop outside of town, where we wouldn't be seen together. "Here's what I found," she said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Scott owes money to 5 different creditors, not 3. Total debt is actually closer to $50,000. I whistled low. "How is that possible?" "He's been borrowing from loan sharks to pay off other loan sharks. Classic debt spiral. And it gets worse. 2 of his creditors are not the kind of people you want to owe money to." "Meaning?" "Meaning they don't just charge interest. They charge interest with the threat of physical violence if you don't pay." "How much time does he have?" "Based on what I've been able to find out, maybe 2 weeks before they start getting serious about collection." "What about the other women?" 3 that I can confirm. 2 through dating apps, 1 from his gym. All of them think they're in exclusive relationships with him." "Does Naomi know about any of this?" "No, but she's about to. I've arranged for her to find some very interesting text messages in Scott's car this afternoon." "How?" Scott's been parking at the grocery store and meeting Naomi there before they go to the motel. Today, he's going to accidentally drop his backup phone in the parking lot, right where Naomi will find it. That phone has all his communications with the other women. I had to admire Mira's thoroughness. What about the debt information? That's going to be trickier. I can't just leave loan documents lying around. But I have an idea. What? One of his creditors is getting impatient. I happen to know he's planning to visit Scott at his brother's house this weekend. If Naomi happens to be there when that visit occurs, she'll learn everything she needs to know about Scott's financial situation. How do you know his creditor's plans? I know people who know people. The advantage of being ex-police is that you maintain certain connections. Is this legal? Everything I'm doing is legal. I'm not creating evidence or lying about anything. I'm just making sure the truth comes out in a way that looks natural. That afternoon, I went home and waited. At 4:30, my phone rang. Allison. Daniel, something's happening. Scott just called me, screaming about how someone is trying to destroy his life. What did he say? That someone planted evidence in his car, that someone is spreading lies about him, that it's all a conspiracy to ruin him. What kind of evidence? He didn't say exactly, but he was ranting about text messages and how Naomi found something she wasn't supposed to see. Where is he now? I don't know. He hung up on me when I told him I didn't care about his problems. What about Naomi? I haven't heard from her, but Scott said she was being unreasonable and jumping to conclusions. At 6:15, my phone buzzed with a text from Naomi. You were right about Scott. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, another text. Can I come over? I need to talk to someone who understands what it's like to be lied to. I thought about Scott's request from the night before that I not let Naomi go through this alone. Despite everything she'd done to me, I found myself feeling sorry for her. She'd been used and manipulated just like I had. I texted back. You can come over, but we're not getting back together. I just want to make that clear. I understand. I just need someone to talk to. She arrived an hour later, looking like she'd been crying for hours. I let her in, and we sat in the living room, maintaining careful distance between us. Tell me what happened, I said. I found text messages on a phone in Scott's car, messages to other women, lots of other women. What did the messages say? The same things he said to me. That he loved them, that he wanted to be with them, that he was going to leave his wife for them. What did you do? I confronted him. He said the phone wasn't his, that someone was trying to frame him. But the messages went back months, Daniel. He's been lying to everyone. What else? While we were arguing, this man came to his brother's house looking for him. A big, scary-looking man who said Scott owed him money. A lot of money. How much money? $15,000 just to him. And he said there were others. What did Scott say? That he was going to pay it back, that he just needed more time. But the man said time was up, that Scott had until Monday to come up with the money or there would be consequences. Naomi started crying again. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I thought Scott was this wonderful man who understood me and cared about me. I thought our marriage was broken and that I deserved to be happy, but I was just another one of his lies. Yes, you were. I know you hate me, and you have every right to. But I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Naomi. You hurt me every day for 3 months while you were sneaking around with Scott. You hurt me every time you lied to my face about where you were and who you were with. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Outside, the rain continued to fall, and I could hear the wind picking up. What are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know. I'm probably going to lose my job. I don't have anywhere to live, and I'm scared of what Scott might do when he realizes I'm not going to help him with his money problems. Do you think he's dangerous? I think he's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. Where is he now? I don't know. When I told him I was done with him, he got angry and said I'd be sorry for abandoning him when he needed me most. That sounded like a threat. Naomi, I think you should stay somewhere else tonight. Somewhere Scott doesn't know about. Why? Because if he's desperate enough to steal from Allison, and if he owes money to dangerous people, he might try to use you as leverage somehow. Use me how? I don't know, but I don't think you should find out. She looked scared. Where can I go? I don't have any friends left. Everyone in town knows what I did. I thought about it for a moment. Despite everything, I couldn't just let her walk into danger. You can stay here tonight, I said. Guest room. But tomorrow you need to find somewhere else to go. Daniel, thank you. I don't deserve your kindness. No, you don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. She went upstairs to the guest room, and I settled in for what I suspected would be a long night. At 11:30, my suspicions were confirmed when Scott's car pulled into my driveway. He sat out there for 10 minutes, engine running, probably trying to decide what to do. Then he got out and walked to my front door. I opened it before he could knock. She's not going back with you, Scott. I need to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you. Daniel, you don't understand. I'm in serious trouble here. These people I owe money to, they're not going to wait much longer. That's not my problem, and it's not Naomi's problem. Please. I just need to explain to her that we can work this out. There's nothing to work out. She knows about the other women, she knows about the gambling debts, and she knows you've been lying to her about everything. Someone set me up. Someone planted that phone in my car. Even if that's true, what about the debt? What about the man who came looking for you today? Scott's shoulders sagged. That's real, but I can fix it if I just have some time. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure something out. Scott, listen to me. Naomi is done with you. Allison is done with you. Your job is gone, your friends are gone, and your creditors are running out of patience. You need to face reality and figure out how to solve your problems without dragging other people down with you. What if I can't? Then you'll face the consequences of your choices, just like everyone else. He stood there for a moment, looking defeated. Then he turned and walked back to his car. But instead of leaving, he sat there for another hour, watching my house. I called the police. This is Daniel Farrow on Maple Street. My estranged wife's boyfriend is sitting in my driveway refusing to leave. I've asked him to go, but he won't. A patrol car arrived 20 minutes later. I watched from my window as the officer talked to Scott, then followed his car out of the neighborhood. Upstairs, Naomi was crying again. The sound carried through the thin walls of the old house, a constant reminder of how completely our lives had been shattered by poor choices and broken trust. But I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. Tomorrow she would have to start building a new life out of the wreckage of her old one, just like I was doing. The difference was that I was building something better, something honest, something that didn't depend on lies and deception and betrayal, and for the first time in months, that felt like enough. Saturday morning brought unexpected silence. No phone calls, no text messages, no desperate visitors. I made coffee and sat in my kitchen, reading the newspaper like it was any other weekend morning. Naomi had left early, slipping out before I woke up, leaving only a note thanking me for letting her stay. The calm felt ominous, like the quiet before a storm. At 10 o'clock, Allison called. Daniel, we have a problem. Scott's brother just called me. Scott never came back to his house last night. Where is he? Nobody knows. His brother said he left yesterday afternoon and never returned. His car's not there and he's not answering his phone. Maybe he's hiding from his creditors. That's what I thought too until I got another call. From Naomi. What did she say? That Scott showed up at her hotel room at 6 this morning, demanding that she help him get money to pay off his debts. What kind of help? He wants her to take out loans, cash in her retirement account, anything she can do to raise money quickly. Did she agree? No. She told him she was done with him and that he needed to leave her alone. That's when he got threatening. Threatening how? He told her that if she didn't help him, he'd make sure everyone knew that the affair was her idea, that she seduced him and manipulated him into leaving his family. Can he do that? He can try, but we have evidence that shows otherwise. The question is whether Naomi is strong enough to stand up to him. I thought about the broken woman who'd cried in my living room the night before. Where is she now? At the police station, filing a restraining order. Good. What about Scott? Still missing. But Daniel, there's something else. I got a call from a man who said Scott owed him money. He wanted to know if I knew where Scott was. What did you tell him? The truth. That Scott doesn't live here anymore and I don't know where he is. What did the man say? That Scott had until Monday to pay what he owed, and if he couldn't find Scott, he might have to look for other ways to get his money back. Other ways meaning what? He didn't say exactly, but he mentioned that Scott had a family and that families sometimes helped each other out of difficult situations. That was definitely a threat. Allison, I think you and the kids should stay somewhere else for a few days. I was thinking the same thing. My sister lives 2 hours away. We could go there until this blows over. Do it. Today. What about you? I'll be fine. Scott's problem is with his creditors, not with me. Are you sure about that? You're the one who exposed his affair and got him fired. She had a point. Scott was desperate, and desperate people often looked for someone to blame for their problems. I'll be careful, I said. But I'm not running away from Scott Mercer. After Allison hung up, I called Mira. Have you heard from Scott since yesterday? No, but I've been monitoring the situation. He's definitely gone underground, checked out of his brother's place, turned off his phone, probably trying to figure out his next move. What do you think that move will be? Hard to say. He's got limited options. He can't pay his debts, he can't get his job back, and now he's lost Naomi too. He's probably feeling cornered. Cornered animals are dangerous. Exactly. You should be careful, Daniel. Scott knows you're responsible for his current situation, and he might decide to take his frustration out on you. Let him try. Don't underestimate him. Desperate people are unpredictable. I spent the afternoon doing normal weekend tasks, grocery shopping, laundry, yard work. I wanted to maintain my routine, to show that I wasn't intimidated by Scott's threats or his creditors' problems. But I also took precautions. I made sure my doors were locked, kept my phone charged, and stayed alert to my surroundings. At 4 o'clock, I was raking leaves in my front yard when a black SUV pulled up to the curb. 2 men got out, both wearing expensive suits that didn't quite hide the bulges under their jackets. Daniel Farrow? The larger man asked. Yes. We're looking for Scott Mercer. We understand you know him. I used to know him. We're not friends anymore. When did you last see him? Last night. He came to my house looking for his girlfriend, but she didn't want to see him. The 2 men exchanged glances. Mr. Farrow, Scott owes our employer a significant amount of money. He was supposed to pay it back by today, but he seems to have disappeared. I don't know anything about Scott's debts. We're not suggesting you do, but we thought you might have some insight into where he might go when he's in trouble. I leaned on my rake and considered the question. Scott's a coward. When he's in trouble, he looks for someone else to solve his problems for him. He's probably trying to find someone to loan him money or hide him until he can figure out what to do. Any idea who that might be? His family, maybe, or one of his girlfriends. He's been seeing several women besides my wife. We know about the other women. We've already talked to them. What about his gambling buddies? People he met at the casino? Those people are the reason he's in this situation. They're not going to help him. The smaller man spoke for the first time. Mr. Farrow, if Scott contacts you, you should encourage him to get in touch with us. Running away is only going to make his situation worse. I'll keep that in mind. They got back in their SUV and drove away. I stood in my yard, holding my rake, thinking about how quickly Scott's life had spiraled out of control. A week ago, he'd had a job, a family, and a girlfriend. Now he was running from loan sharks and hiding from everyone he knew. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Daniel, it's Scott. Don't hang up. What do you want?" "I need help. These people are looking for me, and they're not going to stop until they find me." "That's not my problem. Please, man, I know I screwed up, but I'm scared. These guys aren't just going to break my legs, they're going to hurt people I care about." "Like who? You've burned every bridge you had." "Like Allison. Like the kids. Like you. Why would they hurt me?" "Because you're the one who destroyed my life. You got me fired. You ruined my relationship with Naomi. You turned the whole town against me. If I can't pay them back, they might decide you owe them something." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? You cost me my job and my income. From their perspective, you're partially responsible for my inability to pay my debts." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Scott, that's not how any of this works." "Tell that to them." "Daniel, I'm begging you. I need $20,000. Just enough to buy me some time to figure out a long-term solution." "I don't have $20,000. "Yes, you do. You've got equity in your house, savings accounts, retirement funds. You could get the money if you wanted to." "Even if I could, why would I? You betrayed me, Scott. You slept with my wife for months and laughed about it. Why would I help you now?" "Because if you don't, innocent people are going to get hurt. The only person who's going to get hurt is you, and you brought it on yourself." "Daniel, please, I'm desperate here." "Good. Maybe desperation will teach you something about consequences." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Scott standing on my porch, looking haggard and desperate. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was unkempt, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who hadn't slept in days. I opened the door but kept the chain latch engaged. "Scott, you need to leave." "Daniel, just hear me out. I've got a plan." "I'm not interested in your plan." "What if I could give you information that would help you in your divorce? Something that would guarantee you get everything and Naomi gets nothing." "What kind of information?" "Proof that Naomi was planning to leave you long before our affair started. Proof that she was going to take half your assets and disappear." "I already know that." "But do you know about the money she's been hiding? The secret bank account she opened 6 months ago?" "I didn't know about that." "What secret bank account?" "She's been skimming money from your joint accounts and putting it into an account you don't know about. Almost $10,000. "How do you know this?" "Because I helped her set it up. She said it was insurance in case things went bad between you two." If that was true, it was fraud. It would also explain why our savings account had been growing more slowly than I'd expected. "What do you want in exchange for this information?" $20,000. Cash. "Scott, even if what you're saying is true, I'm not giving you $20,000. Then you'll never prove what Naomi did, and she'll get away with stealing from you. I'll figure out another way to prove it. By the time you do, I'll be gone, either because I skipped town or because those guys caught up with me. Either way, the information dies with me." I stared at him through the gap in the door. He was trying to blackmail me, using information about my own wife's theft as leverage. "Scott, you've got 10 seconds to get off my property before I call the police." "Daniel, please, I'm begging you." 10 seconds. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked back to his car. But instead of driving away, he sat there, watching my house. I called the police again. This time, when the patrol car arrived, Scott was gone. I spent the rest of the evening thinking about what Scott had told me. If Naomi really had been hiding money, I needed to find out about it. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I deserved to know the full extent of her deception. I called Mira. "Can you look into Naomi's financial records? Scott says she's been hiding money in a secret account." "I can try, but it might take a few days to track down." "Do it. I need to know everything." "Daniel, are you okay? You sound stressed." Scott's getting desperate. He tried to blackmail me tonight, and his creditors are starting to look for other ways to get their money back. Are you safe? For now, but I think things are going to get worse before they get better. Do you want me to arrange for some protection? No. I'm not going to hide from Scott Mercer. Be careful, Daniel. Desperate people do desperate things. I hung up and locked my doors. Outside, the wind was picking up, and I could hear tree branches scraping against the roof. It was going to be a long night. At midnight, my security system alarm went off. Someone was trying to break into my garage. I grabbed a flashlight and looked out the back window. A figure was hunched over the side door to my garage, working on the lock with some kind of tool. I called 911, then went to my front window to see if Scott's car was in the driveway. It wasn't, but that didn't mean he wasn't here. The police arrived within 5 minutes, but by then, whoever had been trying to break in was gone. The lock on my garage door had been damaged, but not broken. Any idea who might have done this? The officer asked. I told him about Scott, about the debt situation, about the threats and the desperate phone calls. We'll increase patrols in your neighborhood, he said, but you might want to consider staying somewhere else until this situation resolves itself. I'm not leaving my home because Scott Mercer can't control his gambling addiction. I understand, but your safety is more important than your pride. After the police left, I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee and thinking. Scott was escalating. First threats, then attempted blackmail, now attempted breaking and entering. He was running out of time and options, which made him increasingly dangerous. My phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. Pay me the money or everyone will know what you did to destroy my life. You have 24 hours. I stared at the message for a long time. Scott was threatening to spread lies about me, to claim that I'd somehow orchestrated his downfall out of spite rather than simply exposing the truth about his affair. In a small town, lies could be as damaging as truth if they were told convincingly enough. I typed back, I didn't destroy your life, Scott. You did that yourself. His response came immediately. 24 hours, Daniel. Then everyone learns the truth about who you really are. I turned off my phone and went to bed, but I didn't sleep. Outside, the wind continued to howl, and every sound made me wonder if Scott was out there somewhere, planning his next move. Tomorrow would bring the final confrontation. I could feel it building like a storm, and I knew that when it came, one of us would walk away, and the other would be left with nothing. I was determined to be the one who walked away. Sunday morning came clear and cold, the kind of quiet that feels earned rather than accidental. The sky was pale, almost fragile-looking, and the air had that sharp edge that makes every breath feel deliberate. I hadn't slept much, drifting in and out of shallow rest, but my mind was steady in a way it hadn't been for weeks. Fear had burned itself out overnight, leaving something harder and calmer in its place, resolve, stripped of panic. I moved through the house slowly, deliberately. Coffee brewed. The familiar sounds grounded me. Each step felt like confirmation that this place, this life, was still mine. Whatever happened next, I would face it standing upright. At 7:12 a.m., Mira called. I found the account, she said. Her voice was brisk, professional, but there was satisfaction underneath it. Scott was telling the truth, for once. Naomi moved money into a separate account under her maiden name, $9,140, all traceable. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Not relief, clarity. Can you document it? Already done. Your lawyer will have it in an hour. Thank you, I said, and meant more than the words covered. When I hung up, Scott's last card, his leverage, his implied threat, had just dissolved into paperwork and timestamps. Lies only work when they stay hidden. This one hadn't. At 8:30, Patricia called to confirm receipt. This changes things, she said. If Naomi contests anything now, she risks serious consequences. Financial misconduct doesn't play well in court. Good, I said. I stared out the window at the quiet street. I'm done being surprised. By late morning, the town had already moved on to its next cycle of gossip. In small places, scandals burn hot and fast, then turn to ash. People talk, speculate, exaggerate, and then something newer comes along. What remained were facts, and facts have weight. They don't fade just because attention does. At noon, my phone rang again. Scott. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Talk, I said. His voice was ragged, stripped of the arrogance I'd come to associate with it. They found me. Who? The men. They gave me a choice: pay or disappear in a way that makes paying irrelevant. I leaned back in my chair. That sounds like your problem. I told them everything, he said. About the affair, about you, about how you ruined me. I closed my eyes, feeling something between irritation and exhaustion. And? They already knew, he said quietly. Turns out when you live like I did, nothing stays secret. Silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. Daniel, he said finally, I'm going to turn myself in. Not for the debts, those guys don't care about the law. But for everything else, theft, harassment, the break-in attempt. Maybe if I do that, they'll leave my family alone. I hadn't expected that. Not from him. You should have done that days ago, I said. I know. He swallowed audibly. I just wanted you to know. I really did lose everything. I thought of the laugh I'd heard at 2 a.m., how clean and careless it had sounded, how untouchable he'd believed himself to be. Yes, I said. You did. The call ended. 2 hours later, an officer I recognized from the neighborhood patrol confirmed it. Scott Mercer had walked into the station and confessed. Restraining orders followed. Charges were filed. His creditors, suddenly exposed to attention they didn't want, vanished just as quickly as they'd appeared. By evening, the storm was over. Naomi didn't call again. She didn't need to. Her lawyer contacted Patricia the next day with a proposal that accepted every term we'd set. She waived claims, returned the money, asked only for the divorce to be finalized quickly. It was. 60 days later, the house was mine alone again, legally, emotionally, completely. I repainted the bedroom, donated half the furniture, changed the routines, changed myself. The space felt cleaner, lighter, no longer shaped around someone else's secrets. Allison and I stayed friends, real ones this time, built on truth, not shared illusions. Her kids adjusted. So did she. Slowly. Honestly. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. As for me, insomnia finally let go. One night in early winter, I lay in bed listening to the familiar sounds of the house settling. Pipes ticking, wind brushing the siding, safe sounds. Before sleep took me, I heard it, the quiet, solid reassurance I'd come to value more than any apology. The locks clicked, twice, and this time they were keeping the right things out.